Congratulations, Batch Pangarap. Remember, you yourselves were born of a dream. And wherever life may take you, dare to dream differently. And because every commencement is also an invitation to imagine what comes next, it is fitting that we hear today from someone whose life's work has been devoted to expanding opportunity and championing inclusion. A first generation graduate herself, if not a first community graduate. As an economic development executive, she champions budget and finance, risk management, environment and sustainability, information technology, and human rights in implementing significant projects around the world. She is, in many ways, someone who has dared to dream differently. For more than 3 decades, our commencement speaker has dedicated her life to strengthening institutions that shape the lives of millions across the globe. Most recently, she served as the United States Ambassador and Executive Director to the Asian Development Bank, where she represented the United States on the bank's board and advanced policies that promoted sustainable development, economic cooperation, and good governance through Asia and the Pacific. Her tenure at the Asian Development Bank was marked by visionary leadership. She spearheaded efforts that expanded the bank's lending capacity by an additional $100 billion US dollar over the next decade, while preserving its coveted AAA credit rating, a landmark achievement that significantly enhanced the institution's ability to respond to the region's growing development needs. She also championed the creation of the Innovative Finance Facility for Climate in Asia and the Pacific, a pioneering initiative that has strengthened the bank's capacity to help developing countries confront the pressing challenges of climate change. Before assuming this distinguished diplomatic post, Ambassador Wong built an extraordinary career in public service through leadership roles. Among these is at the NASA. Yes, that is NASA. The National Aeronautics Space Administration, where she served as the Director of the Budget Division in the Office of the Chief Finance Officer. There she led the transformation of NASA's $18 billion budget planning and execution process. She also served at the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the United States Department of Treasury, and the World Bank Group. Across these institutions, she earned a reputation for advancing fiscal stewardship, institutional reform, transparency, and accountability, qualities that remain indispensable to effective leadership in an increasingly interconnected world. Her commitment to service extends well beyond government. As the founder of the Conference on Asia-Pacific American Leadership, our commencement speaker has helped open doors for generations of young leaders pursuing careers in public service. Equally remarkable is the academic foundation that prepared her for this extraordinary journey. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, her Master of Science in Environmental Engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, and her Master of Public Administration from the prestigious John F. Kennedy School of Government of Harvard University. She is also a holder of Doctor of Humanities honoris causa. These accomplishments reflect a lifelong pursuit of knowledge that has continually informed her work in public policy and international development. And I should not miss this because we share the same habit. She is an amazing photographer. My dear graduates, as you prepare to step into a world that demands not only competence, but also courage and a deep sense of responsibility, you will hear today from a leader whose life reminds us that true success is measured not merely by professional achievement, but by the opportunities we create for others. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor that I present our commencement speaker, the Honorable Ambassador Chantal Wong.
Wow, I think the introduction is going to be longer than my speech. um, Good afternoon, President Togo, uh, Chancellor Itu Lagan, members of the MSU Board of Regents, all the faculties and staff here, and most of all, to the class of 2026. I know the parents and families are watching all of this live stream because they can't fit into this auditorium. So really heads off to all your family that have brought you here. Thank you for the honor of standing with you today. First of all, again, congratulations to 2,428 of you, government scholars from across Mindanao and beyond, from many faiths and many peoples, graduating today from one of this country's finest institutions of technology. Whatever it took to get here, whatever it took you to get here, let me tell you a little bit something about myself before I go further. I'm an engineer, as the Chancellor mentioned. Before I was ever a diplomat, before I ever sat in the boardroom tables of the Asian Development Bank, I was a young woman with a degree in civil engineering, as mentioned, from the University of Hawaii, and later a master's in environmental engineering, actually sewage engineering, by the way, from the University of California, Berkeley. Now, I know not everyone graduating today study engineering. Some of you spent these years in the sciences, information technology, education, the arts, business, and graduate programs across every field this university offers. But whatever you study, an Institute of Technology teaches you something that is in common: how systems work and what happens when they don't. Whether it's a load-bearing wall, or a watershed, or a line of code, or a classroom, you understand that systems either hold or fail under pressure, and that someone has to be responsible for the difference. That's the language we share together. I also did not grow up imagining I end up here in Mindanao, and speaking to you. My story does not begin with privilege. I was born in China, and in 1960, I escaped China with my grandmother on the bottom of a boat, leaving my parents behind, fleeing famine. By the way, it was during the period of time that 15 to 55 million people died of starvation. It was that period of time that I left. My parents made the ultimate sacrifice for me to leave, fleeing famine and real poverty with nothing but what we could carry. My grandmother and I made our way through Hong Kong, then Okinawa, before finally arriving in Guam, which is not far from here, by the way, in 1972. Borders for me were never abstract lines on a map. They were something you crossed because you had to and you had no other choice. Sometimes without people that you love the most. I know something of what it means to come from very little, and I suspect many of you coming from Mindanao's own difficult history know exactly what that feels like too. That kind of the beginning, by the way, teaches you something no classroom can hold. That is how to hold on to hope. And the chancellor talked about dream when circumstances give you very little reason to. I came to the United States, became a citizen, and later, once I had the means, brought my own parents out of China to join me. By the way, I was separated from my parents for 21 years. I was 27 before I saw them again. My own education, the whole shape of my life was made possible by a scholarship. Someone decided I was worth investing in before I had done anything yet to prove it. That is exactly what your government scholarship is. Your country placed a bet on you before you had done anything to prove yourselves. Today, you prove them right, all of you. Today, I also call the Philippines home. After a career that took me twice to the Asian Development Bank, 20 years apart, by the way, and in between, as mentioned, through NASA, the US Treasury, and the White House, I've settled here. I've come to describe my life's work in one sentence. That is, infrastructure is dignity, finance is equity, and diplomacy is relationship. Roads, bridges, power grids are not just concrete and steel. They are how a government tells its people they matter enough to be connected, to be reached, and to be counted. Budgets are not just numbers. They are how a society decides who gets a chance. Finance is equity meant something very concrete in my own work. I help write protection directly into ADB's safeguard policies for vulnerable and marginalized communities, particularly LGBTQ communities. It took a lot. It was very hard, by the way. The people, mostly the marginalized communities, the people that development can most easily leave behind or harm. Because growth that comes at the cost of anyone's dignity isn't really growth at all. And diplomacy at its best is relationship building at scale. So you are about to spend your careers building, literally and figuratively, what this country needs and what your community needs. So today, I want to leave you with the same 4 things that carry me through my own career. That is passion, patience, perseverance, and partnership. But I want to ground them here in this land because this is also mine now, too. First, passion. Passion is what gets you up in the morning. I spent part of my career at NASA, as was mentioned, the agency that put a man on the moon. There's a story, uh, maybe legendary, I don't know how true, but it's about President John F. Kennedy. He was visiting a NASA site facility, and he asked the janitor who he saw sweeping the floor, says, "What are you doing?" Says, "I'm putting a man on the moon," the janitor said. He wasn't paid to dream that big. He chose to. That is passion, finding the larger purpose inside whatever task is in front of you. Whether you're designing a bridge, coding a system, or sweeping the floor. Do not wait for the job title to tell you that your work matters. Second is patience. Nothing worth building happens overnight. I learned it the hard way, uh, far away from any boardroom, by the way. And as the chancellor mentioned, after I had, this is my second retirement, by the way. The first retirement, after I retired from the US government federal service in 2014, I picked up a camera. And for the first time, I didn't really know how to turn it on. I became really obsessed with it. I was up every morning before sunrise to catch the sunrise and out again at dusk, taking hundreds and hundreds of really forgettable photos. They were awful, by the way. There's an idea popularized by writer Malcolm Gladwell that real mastery takes about 10,000 hours of unglamorous practice. I don't know exactly how many hours it took me, but eventually, guess what? One of my photos was selected for a traveling exhibit opening at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. Nobody saw the thousands of bad photos that came along first, by the way. So infrastructure is the same. The foundation work is slow, invisible, unglamorous, and it is only part that it actually determines whether anything built on top of it holds. So trust the boring process and the boring stages. They are the ones that the real work gets done. Third is perseverance, or I call it persistence sometimes. I spent part of my time working alongside Filipino advocates these days, including the musician and activist Apple the App. You guys know who he is? Yeah. On a projects that support Filipino coconut farmers. Because guess what? Climate crisis is not a future problem here in this country. It is a present one. Across the Asia Pacific, an estimated 21 trillion in economic activities depend on healthy soil, forests, and coastlines. We know that very well here in this country, and certainly in this region. Yet there's roughly about 900 billion annual gap in financing to protect them, while some 375 million people across our region face severe food insecurity. The farmers who feed this country are almost never in the room when these financing decisions get made. That work of getting them a seat at the table, which is what we're trying to do, is very slow. And some days it really feels like pushing against the wall that doesn't move. But perseverance is not about the absence of setbacks. It is what you do the day after one. Mindanao knows this better than most places I've seen or worked in. You had to rebuild again and again. That capacity is not a burden, by the way. It is the form of expertise the rest of the world badly needs. Fourth is partnership. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. I'd add that it takes a village to raise a career, a country, or a coastline. None of what I've described about my work, not with ADB, not the farmer partnerships, not even my own path from a scholarship kid to a US ambassador, happened alone. I had mentors who opened doors, colleagues who fought alongside me for causes that weren't popular yet, and partners across government who decides to trust each other before paperwork caught up. So my advice to you today is build your own village. Some people will mentor you in your craft. Some will mentor you in life. I was very lucky to have a mentor most of my career, for 30 years in my career. But very few people succeed as a party of one. Least of all in a discipline built on systems, not soloists, whatever field you studied. So, passion, patience, perseverance, and partnership, all, by the way, in the service of one thing, and that is purpose, a purpose in life. You're graduating as scholars and builders of infrastructure, of knowledge, of communities into a region, the Indo-Pacific, that is now the center of the world's attention, for better or for worse. It is where the great economic promise of this century is unfolding. And it is also on the front line of the climate crisis. This country, this island of Mindanao specifically, sits in the middle of that story. Poverty and inequality persists for far too many of your fellow citizens. That is the complex world you are graduating into. My appeal to you today is very simple. You've had the privilege of an education at one of the best technological universities in this country. Your family invested in you. Your government has invested in you. I would urge you, as I try to live my own life, to invest some of what you've been given back into public service. However you define it, there is no higher calling than being asked to help solve the hardest problems your fellow citizens face. I believe that is exactly what your education has prepared you for and prepared you to do. As you go, build ladders, not just for yourself, which you need to do that as you start off in your career, but whatever comes after you, or whoever comes after you. Someone built one for me, a scholarship, a mentor, a country willing to take a chance on an outsider. Someone built one for you, too, right? It is the reason why 3,428 of you are sitting here today. Your job now is to build the next run. I will close with words from someone I admire greatly, delivered in another commencement speech, by the way, in 2022. You'll have to guess who it is. Your time, he says, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. So congratulations, class of 2026, mabuhay, and I'm proud to call myself your neighbor.